Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It's another Friday and another movie review from Joelum himself. In the past couple of weeks, I've covered Kevin Costner movies such as The Untouchables and No Way Out. Well, today I'm going to be doing the first of a 3-week trend of Costner movies, starting with 1990's Revenge. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and when you're done watching this video, you can check out the past movie review episodes in the description box. Following 1987's No Way Out, Kevin Costner starred in two other movies, 1988's Bull Durham and 1989's Field of Dreams. Those were baseball-oriented films. By the time 1990 came around, Kevin Costner was in a new movie, co-starring with Anthony Quinn, Madeline Stowe, Miguel Ferrer, and Sally Kirkland in a movie called Revenge. Now, Revenge is a 1990 American romantic thriller film directed by Tony Scott, may he rest in peace. The film, some of the scenes were filmed in Mexico. The film is a production of New World Pictures and Rastar Films and was released by Columbia Pictures. Revenge also features one of John Leguizamo's earliest film roles. The film is based on a novella written by Jim Harrison, published in Esquire magazine in 1979. Harrison co-wrote the script for the film. The film received a cult following since its release, especially for its dark theme and Tony Scott's direction. Now, the novella was published in 1979, along with two other novellas under the title Legends of the Fall. Esquire magazine published the novella Legends of the Fall in January of '79, and public response was so enthusiastic that Revenge was published in May. Warner Brothers promptly bought the screen rights and hired Harrison to do the screenplay. The project languished in developmental hell for 11 years. John Huston was to direct, Jack Nicholson and then Orson Welles was attached to direct. Harrison later wrote about 12 different endings to it. Walter Hill, who directed 48 Hours and The Warriors, worked on the screenplay for a while. Costner had an interest in the novella from the mid-1980s. It seemed to me something I wanted to do myself, he said. I contemplating directing it because it seemed like a small movie. The story was manageable, but the themes were big and universal, and the writing was tough, and it was honest, and it was original. There was poignance in the story, and it read like an original movie to me, says Kevin Costner. Producer Ray Stark eventually acquired the rights from Warner Bros. In exchange for the film Bird. Costner used his celebrity status to help him get the film made. Costner would serve as executive producer and take a special interest in the script. The writer was Robert Garland, who made No Way Out with Costner. For a time, it seemed John Huston might direct Costner in the film, and the two men met. Huston was not impressed by the actor. In 1987, New World Pictures teamed up with Rastar to co-own feature films to the Right Revenge project. Principal shooting took place in several Mexican cities, including Puerto Vallarta and Mexico City. Production completed on December 14, 1988. Some shooting took place in Sierra de Organos National Park in the town of Sombrerete, Mexico. The closing scene was shot at the Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de los Remedios, one of several monasteries near the volcano Popocatépetl, whatever the fuck that's called. Director Tony Scott would lend several assets from his prior making of Top Gun, including access to the Navy personnel to arrange footage of F-14s over rough desert terrain. Viewers would also recognize the familiar cockpit simulators in Revenge's opening sequence as those used in Top Gun. So anyway, let's get to the plot of the movie. Michael J. Cochran is a U.S. Navy aviator. Leaving the service after 12 years, he receives a matched pair of Beretta shotguns and an invitation from his wealthy friend to Baron Tibby Mendez to spend time at his hacienda in Mexico. Tibby is also a powerful crime boss, constantly surrounded by bodyguards. In Mexico, Cochran meets Tibby's beautiful young wife, Miria, who lives in lavish surroundings but is unhappy because her much older husband does not want children, feeling pregnancy would spoil her looks. Jay presents Tibby with a Navy G1 leather flight jacket, but he rubs Tibby's suspicious right-hand man, Caesar, the wrong way by behaving independently and not acting like an employee. After a dinner, Tibby conducts a private meeting with his business associates, killing one of them. While elsewhere, Miria and Jay get better acquainted, they develop a romantic attraction towards each other. During a party with Tibby and his men nearby, Jay and Miria have sex in a closet. Jay tells Miria he intends to leave Mexico, worried that Tibby will become aware of the situation. Miria begs Jay to stay and, having fallen in love with her, he agrees and they arrange a secret rendezvous at a remote cabin in Mexico. Miria tells Tibby that she will be visiting her sister in Miami, but Tibby overhears a telephone conversation in which Miria asks her sister to lie for her. Tibby drives Miria to the airport, giving her one last kiss. Jay is secretly waiting inside the airport and they drive off in the cabin. After their hideaway, they are surprised by Tibby and his men. Jay's beloved dog Rocky is shot dead, calling Miria a faceless whore. He strikes her across the face and cut her across the mouth with a knife, creating a Glasgow smile as Tibby's henchmen viciously beat Jay. After setting fire to the cabin, they dump Jay in the desert, leaving him to die. Miria is placed in a whorehouse, with Tibby giving instructions for her to be fucked 50 times a day. She is drugged, abused, and relegated to common use. The young man responsible for keeping her drugged has AIDS, and Miria no longer wishes to live. She persuades him to share a needle with her, thus infecting Miria with HIV. An unconscious Jay is discovered by Morrow, a peasant farmer whose family slowly nurses Jay back to health. Jay returns to the burnt cabin and retrieves some money he had hidden. Morrow drives Jay to town and gives him a knife to cut the balls off your enemy. Jay encounters a Texan transporting a horse who offers Jay a ride to Durango. Inside a cantina, Jay notices one of the thugs who had trashed him. He follows him in the men's room and cuts his throat. After a day on the road, the Texan delivers the horse to a wealthy man who recognizes Jay from an afternoon at Tibby's estate. The friendly Texan later dies peaceably in his car while Jay is driving. At a motel, Jay runs across Morrow's brother-in-law, Amador, and his quiet friend, Ignacio, are willing to help Jay seek revenge because Amador's sister was killed after getting mixed up in business that involved Tibby. They capture another one of Tibby's henchmen, who tells them where Miria can be found. Jay barges into the brothel, only to find that Miria has been moved. The Madame taunts Jay that Miria proved very popular with the clientele, and no one but Tibby knows where she is. Jay, Amador, and Ignacio ambush Tibby and his bodyguard during Tibby's morning horseback ride. Jay is there to ask Miria's whereabouts, but first Tibby requests that Jay ask forgiveness for having stolen his wife. When Jay lowers his gun and asks Tibby's forgiveness, he reveals that Miria is in a convent hospice dying of AIDS. Jay arrives in time to tell Miria that he loves her. Then he carries her outside and Miria tells Jay that she also loves him before she dies in his arms. End of the movie. With a budget of $22 million to make, Revenge was released on February 16th, 1990, and it did $15,535,771 in the U.S. box office. The reception of this movie has been terrible, according to some critics out there. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 30% based on reviews from 20 critics with an average rating of 4.4 out of 10. On Metacritic, it had a score of 35 out of 100 based on reviews from 23 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film a B- grade on a scale of A to F. They pretty much shot a novella, said Harrison. I was so swept away by it, I cried. I really did. I'm not known for crying. In retrospect, Jeffrey Allen Fiskin said, there are parts of that film I really liked. So my overall rating for this movie is a 60 out of 100. And I gotta be honest with you. In retrospect, this movie deserves a whole hell of a lot more credit than it actually got the first time around. It deserves a cult following. It deserves a cult following like no other movie before or after. Tony Scott did a hell of a job directing this film, and I thought they told a hell of a story. Even though I didn't like the way it ended, I always thought that Costner was going to get revenge on Anthony Quinn's character and just shoot him dead and all that stuff, but that didn't happen, so I don't know why the fuck that didn't happen, so at least this one, the ending was a much sadder, and you know what? It had every right to be sad in the end. So, but did you know that a couple of years later, R. Kelly, and I'm not even supposed to even mention his name because of the reputation he's got. I think he's sitting in jail right now, if I'm not mistaken. But he did a song and a music video called Down Low, Nobody Has to Know, that loosely inspired the movie Revenge. And I think he co-performed the song with Ronald Isley of the Isley Brothers, if I'm not mistaken. Well, anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Joe Lum's movie review for this Friday.
No.